Hello again, Lockpicking Paul here, and what I've got tonight is a bit special. This is the ALC Galaxy, or actually it's three of them. These were sent to me very kindly by MHM of Gorilla Picking in New Zealand. This is an Australian lock company lock. I think this is a pretty rare lock, and if not rare, desperately uncommon in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm unlikely to have been able to get hold of one of these by any other means. This is quite different to most other locks. So first of all, you could be forgiven for thinking this is a bit like a tubular lock. Well, no, it's not. It has some things in common with a tubular lock, like it's got push pins, and you will need to pick it to each of its 6 positions. Although most of the locks that this locks up only needs one position to open the lock. But that's where the similarities end. In every other respect, it's really quite different. So it's got 5 pins. I think there are false gates in here, or if not false gates, something that acts like false gates, and you've got to keep going until you find the right gate. And it has a very specific sort of feel to a set gate, and it binds incredibly tightly under not very much tension, which is quite the challenge because this is a tool maker's lock. Let me explain about the tools, and then we can talk about some of the challenges inside the lock itself. So you've got to make a bunch of tools, and MHM has a good document on the kind of tools you need, the kind of dimensions you need in order to be able to pick this lock. First of all, we have a tensioner, and I'll get into some subtleties of this in a minute. You'll notice there is a groove here. Well, first attempt at picking these locks, I did not have that groove in there, and it wouldn't open. But I'll get into that in a minute. The diameter of this tube is, you have to be very precise. You have very little room to get the tensioner in there and pick down the side of it to get the pins. So that is hard to make, and I've made this from a piece of car aerial, and then you have to silver solder the lug on the end here. That focus is driving me crazy. So yeah, you have to move this out of the way. I think it's picking up on other stuff. So you have to silver solder that on. Now, the first attempt at making this, I melted the tube. Now there is a putty you can get. I've got some of this putty now, which I filled the tube with, and it's like a heat dissipating putty. It's used by people who braze car radiators, and it's designed to carry the heat away so that you don't melt the solder on the radiators. Well, it works a treat in here too. You can stuff that full of that heat dissipating putty, and you can blaze away doing silver soldering. And I've got a really good fit with the tension lug. So it's a little trick, and if I can find the information on the putty, I'll stick it in the description below, because I don't think I've ever seen it. I bought it a long time ago when I was building hot rods, and I've never seen it since. It's probably a very specialist car maker tool. So that's the tensioner. But you've then got a tool like this. This has with a cutout on the end, and this is used to set the angle of what's called the co-bar, and that is this thing in the center of the lock. The co-bar can exist in one of 3 positions: left, right, or center, like it is now. And you use this tool here on top of the co-bar to set the angle. You can only set the angle when it's under tension. So actually, to make this work, you've got to have the tensioner in the lock. It's got to be under tension, and then you put the co-bar tool in on top of that, and then you can rotate it. It's a bit fiddly, and then you've got to put some kind of tension on the actual tensioner itself, and that's what this bar is. You've got to have a little bar you push through these 2 holes in the end of the tensioner. So you've got to make all the tools for this. In terms of the actual lock itself and the co-bar, yes, has to be set to the correct position, and yes, there are 5 pins, and yes, there are false gates. There's actually another mechanism in the top of the keyway as well, which I will explain in the picking video, because that took me by surprise when I first tried to open this lock. I knew the pins were all set, but the lock wouldn't open, and that was a bit of a journey of discovery. Inside the lock, now MHM sent me one that didn't have the code bar in it. It was just one he had lying about, and he thought this would be helpful, and it really was in terms of a couple of things. Let me show you. These are the pins, or rather the rod bars. You push these down. See that? Got the pick the wrong way around. Try that again, shall we? There you go. As you can see, right in the back of the lock, they interact with the actual code bar, which has cutouts or pinholes on it. And once they're all aligned, the lock will open. Good enough. There's also this other trick in here. You can see in the top front of that keyway. That's a ball bearing. Now, in its locked state, that ball bearing is recessed. But as the core turns, that ball bearing is pushed into this channel. Let's see if we can just quickly turn that and show you. Come on, turn. There we go. So now, if we have a look at that, it's now round to one position, this lock. Where is that? There it is. You'll notice the ball bearing is now proud. So that's been pushed into the keyway. That's what that groove was in the tip of the tensioner. If you don't have a groove there, there's nowhere for the ball bearing to go, and it just doesn't open. So that was a bit of a shock, actually, when you think you've picked it and it won't open, and now you've got to modify the tool again. But that's part of the fun, solving the problem. What else to say about this? Well, the code bar, as you can see, can be removed. And all you've got to do is pick this to one position clockwise, I believe, and that code bar will pop up and you can take it out. My problem is I'm not sure how to get that code bar back in. There is a special tool, the code bar removal tool, which allows the easy removal and, more importantly, the correct reinsertion of the code bar. And without that tool, I don't know how successful that will be. Now, the tool itself apparently is super, super rare, and I'm probably unlikely to ever see one. So the question for me is, can I make a tool that will facilitate code bar removal, or is that going to be a bridge too far? Well, that might be the subject of a follow-up video later on. But for now, I'm just going to have to make do with having picked these and carry on my research. So up now is the picking video, which I've already done because I wanted to be sure it was actually going to work, and it did, and I'm delighted about that. But yeah, again, huge thanks to MHM for making this possible. Cheers, mate, and here's a picking video. Okay, now's the time to get it picked. Let's prove it's all working. Now I'm only going to pick it to sort of just shy of the first position. I don't want it to lock into that place, because that means I've got to pick it out of it. And there are some potential challenges as well, where you pick it too far, you can end up getting the code bar removed, and I don't have a means of resetting that code bar or reseating that code bar at this point. I'm still researching this lock. So here's a tensioner. Notice the little cutout on there. That is because there is an interactive element in the top channel of a lock, it's a ball bearing. And as you rotate the core, that ball bearing, which is recessed, is pushed into the lock core, and if there's nowhere for it to go, the lock will bind up. So that was a bit of a shock after I first picked it. And before we can get to actually picking the pins, we have to set the code bar angle. The code bar can be in one of three positions. It can be left, center, like it is now, or right. This particular lock, if we look at the key, you can see that there's a channel at the end of that keyway, and that channel engages with a bar on the top of the code bar and pushes the code bar in a certain direction. In this case, it's under a right-hand side. So I'm going to tension this going anti-clockwise just to one position, apply some tension, and push down on that code bar with my seating tool and rotate that right. Now, hopefully that's set at the right angle. I think I can just make that out down the keyway. Keep tension on. Insert a tension bar into the top of a lock. Okay, I think we're set up and ready to pick. Let's find, I think binder is either 2 or 3, I can't remember which. That's not helpful, they're both binding. So try 2 first, I think. Right, slight core movement with that. Slipped off a pin. It's gone down, but it's not seated yet. That might be seated. Okay, there's almost like a tapering effect with some of these. There you go, it feels like it's set. It feels good. Yeah, another movement off of pin 3, little core rotation there. And another one off of 2. 3 feels good. 4 feels good. Let's try 1 now. Yeah, it's very stiff. That feels set and got some more core movement. Okay, let's go for 5. There we go, we're picked. I'm not going to move it any more than that. But I will turn this around so we can see the cam. I'm going to rotate it back upwards to lock it. Yeah, there you go. Really super pleased with that, and a good time too. And the real challenge is in understanding the lock and the mechanics of it, and obviously making this very, very tricky to make tensioner, which is, yeah, definitely a challenge. This is the 3rd attempt, but it works a treat. All right, there you go, a wonderful ALC Galaxy, and thank you again, MHM, for the lock and for all of your expertise. All right, cheers.